Welcome snoozy friends to your channel Snooze in 10 new playlist consisting of 2 stories. First we would be telling you a story of a person who used to fix clocks, but to a few, he was something more, a listener of melodies. And the second story of a girl who lived in a floating cottage and weaved melodies for the dreamers. Just too brief for our first-time listeners, our idea of channel is that we try to engage your imagination gently and activate the parasympathetic nervous system. Help you not to overthink when you close your eyes, and last but not the least, provide you emotional comfort. Let's begin today's first snoozy story. Moon Melody. In a quiet town nestled between the hills and the sea, where the nights were gentle and the stars whispered softly, there lived an old man named Elliot. He was known to most as the man who fixed clocks, but to a few, he was something more, a listener of melodies that came not from instruments, but from the sky. Each evening, just after the last bell of the village church rang, and the streets became still, Elliot would walk up a narrow path to a hill outside town. He carried with him a small wooden box and an old brass telescope. No one knew what was in the box. Some thought it held tools. Others said it was filled with music notes he caught in the wind. But only Elliot knew the truth. The box held memory and the melody of the moon. Long ago, when Elliot was a boy, he had a sister named Lenny. She had a laugh that could make flowers bloom, and eyes that always looked skyward. They spent every night sitting on the roof of their house, staring up at the moon. Lenny believed the moon sang. Not loud, not like a song you'd hum, but a soft sound, deep and old. If you listen just right, she would whisper, "You'll hear the moon tell a story." Elliot never heard it back then. Not really. But he nodded and listened because he loved her. Then, one winter, Lenny fell ill. She grew quiet. Her eyes, though still bright, no longer looked up. And one morning, she was gone. The house felt too quiet after that. The sky too large. The moon too far. But Elliot kept watching it, night after night. And one evening, many years later, when he was much older and the silence of the world had become his friend, he heard it. The moon. A melody. Soft. Slow. Steady. It wasn't a song with words. It was more like a feeling. One that filled the chest and made the eyes well up. A memory in music. And ever since, he listened. On the hilltop, Elliot would set up his telescope and open the wooden box. Inside was a small silver disc, something Lenny had given him. And beside it, a folded piece of paper. Her last letter. He never read it aloud. He didn't need to. Instead, he'd sit quietly, tilt his head to the sky, and close his eyes, and listen. The moon's melody changed with the seasons. In spring, it sounded like new beginnings. In summer, like distant waves. In autumn, it carried the rustle of golden leaves. And in winter, it was deep and soft, like snow falling on a still lake. He never wrote it down. Music like that was not for writing. It was for remembering. Children from the village sometimes followed him at a distance, They'd watch from behind trees as Elliot sat on the hill. Eyes closed, face lifted. One night, a small boy named Milo walked up to him. "Are you listening to the moon again?" Elliot opened his eyes and smiled. "Yes." "Would you like to listen too?" Milo nodded and sat beside him. They said nothing for a long time. Then Milo whispered, "I think I hear something." "What does it sound like?" Elliot asked gently. Milo thought. "Like a memory I haven't made yet." Elliot smiled. "That's the best kind." As the years passed, more villagers began to visit the hill. Not to speak, not to ask, just to sit and listen. Some brought blankets, some brought tears, some brought stories they couldn't say aloud. And somehow the moon listened too. Its gentle glow wrapped around the hill like a blanket, and its melody, though soft, seemed to touch everyone. Elliot grew older. His hands trembled more, and his walks grew slower. But he never missed a night. Until one evening, the villagers noticed he wasn't at the hill. They went to his house, found his wooden box by the door, the telescope still by the window, a small note beside it, "Gone to follow the melody. Don't worry. Keep listening." That night, the moon was especially bright. And the melody? Stronger. The villagers, young and old, walked up the hill together. They sat in a wide circle and closed their eyes. They didn't speak. But if you had walked by just then, you might have felt it. A warmth in the air, a hum in your chest, like the moon was singing. And everyone, even for just a moment, could hear it. The melody of love kept, of loss remembered, of someone who listened, and of a silver moon watching over it all. You are not alone. And now, story of a girl who lived in a floating cottage and weaved melodies for the dreamers. The melody weaver. In the hush between midnight and dawn, when even the stars seem to hold their breath, there exists a realm few have ever seen, and even fewer remember. It lies above the clouds but beneath the moon, tucked in the fold of the sky where forgotten dreams drift like feathers, and old lullabies hum softly to themselves. This place is known only to the most delicate whispers of sleep, and the gentlest beats of weary hearts. It is the home of the melody weaver. Her name is Nessa, and she lives in a floating cottage spun from wind and twilight. Its walls are stitched from woven fog, and its windows glow with starlight caught in jars. Nessa walks barefoot across cloud-soft floors, her steps silent, her hands always in motion. She does not speak often, for the air in her world is made not for words, but for music, not the kind made by instruments, but the melodies that live in dreams, memories, and breath. Each night, as the sky darkens into its deepest hue, Nessa begins her work. She gathers threads of invisible song, silvery strands that float through the sky like fireflies. These threads come from the sleeping world below, from the sigh of a child, the exhale of a lonely traveler, the soft heartbeat of a mother resting at last. Each thread holds a tone, a rhythm, a color. Some threads shimmer with joy. Others tremble with sadness. A few are nearly silent, frayed with worry, heavy with sorrow. Nessa gathers them all. In the center of her sky-bound cottage stands a loom made of moonwood and dreamlight. Here, she weaves. She begins with the strongest threads, those spun from peace, from gentle laughter, from the stillness that follows a loving touch. These form the base of her melody. Then she weaves in the fragile ones, carefully anchoring them to hope, winding them gently with strands of resilience and warmth. No thread is ever discarded. Even the most broken tones are woven with care. For Nessa believes that all sounds, even the sad ones, deserve a place in the song of rest. When her weaving is complete, the melody rises from the loom like mist rising from a quiet lake. It floats upward, then spirals downward in waves, traveling through wind, across branches, into rooftops and windows and through the thin veil of dreaming. And wherever it touches, sleep becomes deeper, breaths become slower, hearts become lighter. But one night, something changed. As Nessa reached for a thread floating on the breeze, a silver one, so soft it almost dissolved in her fingers, she felt something unfamiliar. It was a silence, a perfect, aching silence. Not the calm kind that soothes. This silence was empty. It had no hum, no echo. It was not rest. It was absence. The thread did not sing. It did not pulse. It wept. Nessa closed her eyes and placed the thread on her palm. She saw, in a flicker, the face of a boy. He was no older than 10, curled in a blanket, eyes wide open though the clock beside him whispered midnight. He clutched a stuffed animal to his chest, but his gaze was distant. Around him, the world was quiet, but inside him, there was a storm without sound. He had not dreamed in many nights. His thread had grown too quiet to reach her until now. Nessa touched the thread to her loom, but it would not hold. It slipped through the weave like water, refusing to take shape. She had never known a silence so deep. So she left her cottage. She wrapped herself in a shawl of woven night and stepped onto the bridge of moonlight that led down to the sleeping world. She followed the silence, guided by a sense older than sound. Through clouds, over treetops, across rooftops and sleeping fields she drifted. And finally, she reached the boy. She sat beside his bed, unseen, her presence light as breath. He trembled, though the room was warm. His thoughts churned in circles, memories he could not name, worries too large for words. Nessa touched his forehead gently, and his mind stilled for just a moment. In that moment, she sang. It was not a song with words or melody. It was a song of presence, of quiet understanding, of being held. She sang the sound of a soft blanket tucked under a chin. The echo of a kind voice saying, "I'm here." The rhythm of breathing in the arms of someone safe. The lull of the ocean. The hush of snow falling at night. The warmth of a candle lit in the dark. And slowly, the boy exhaled. The silence shifted. Not gone, but changed. No longer empty, but full of waiting. Nessa returned to her loom, with the boy's thread now glowing faintly in her hands. She began to weave again, this time singing softly as she worked. And the melody that rose that night was unlike any she had ever woven. It hummed with sorrow, but also courage. It pulsed with fear, but also love. It held the weight of all that cannot be spoken, and the lightness of being understood without words. When it floated downward, it found not only the boy, but others. Children who had not dreamed in days. Adults who smiled by day, but cried in sleep. Hearts that had grown quiet with the noise of the world. The melody wrapped them gently, and they rested. Night after night, Nessa continued to weave. And each night, she listened more closely for the silent threads. The ones that said nothing at all, but needed her the most. She never stopped. Even when her own hands trembled. Even when the clouds grew thin. She knew her melodies were needed. And always, always, she sang. Tonight, as you lie in bed, your thoughts drifting like leaves on a slow river, you may feel a hush in the air that is not empty. You may feel a warmth just beyond your skin. You may hear something, not with your ears, but with your heart. That is Nessa's melody, woven for you. For every worry you carry, for every sorrow you hide, for every breath that aches, her song has found you. Sleep now. Let your breath follow the rhythm of her loom. Let her melody wrap around you like night, like sky, like home. You are not alone. You are never alone. Good night.